Welcome. Thank you for joining us. This is a very short session on defining the client experience in relation to personal training. I think it's impossible these days to go to a exercise convention, to read a magazine, to listen to a podcast without people talking about the exerciser, the client experience. And I hope this goes a little bit of a way in terms of defining what that might be. I've got 3 outcomes from this session. I'm going to define what the experience is. We're going to look at how we can influence the experience as personal trainers. And that's a key word, really, influence the experience. And then we'll look at the real world value to us as personal trainers. So 3 outcomes from this session. So let's get to go. Let's define the experience. Before we look at the experience, I'd like to take a step back and actually look what a service is. Because as personal trainers, we do provide a service. If we don't have a service, then we don't have a job, basically. We are learning to deliver some sort of service. And a service is defined as an act of help. That's what a service is defined as. And if as a personal trainer, I don't have a service, then I don't have anything to offer. I can't help people, so I don't have a business, if you like. So it's defined as an act of help. That's what we do. We provide a service. That service, as personal training, can be designed and custom built. The way we take the member on the journey can be very individual, and it should be individual to their wants and needs. An experience, when you read some of the books around the experience, and most of the books around the experience have been based in hospitality or retail or tourism, and maybe in terms of entertainment, when you look at experiences is defined as the next or the new level in member customer value. That's what it's defined as. They're characterised as feelings of joy and pleasure, and they're measured in terms of feelings and sensations. This is the experience. Experiences can be feelings of happiness, joy, feelings that they're gaining an identity in the gym, they're becoming known as an exerciser, feelings of comfort and autonomy, feelings of enjoyment, feelings of relatedness, feelings of purpose, safety, growth, capability, mastery, trust. There's a lot of different ways in which the experience, when measured in feelings, can be defined, as well as confidence. One thing that differentiates an experience from a service is that it's unique to the individual. They are defined as being hyper-personal. My brother lives in a very different world to me, and when we meet up for a coffee or something to eat, he often says to me, "Keith, you need to go to this hotel, it's a great experience. You need to go to this restaurant, it's a great experience." No, he can't really say that because it was his experience. I might go there and experience great customer value, great customer service, but I'm not having the same experience that he would have had, because we all interpret the world differently. So experiences are unique to the individual, and they are hyper-personal. In terms of how we go about influencing the experience, and I use the term influencing, not any other word, because I can't create an experience. I can just influence it. The experience is within the individual. It is personal to them. In fact, the word that's constantly being used is the word I used earlier on, which is hyper-personal. But in terms of influencing the experience, a lot of people use the term touchpoints. And I'd like to draw your attention to this image that's on the screen now. And I'd like you to look at this image. It was designed by an Italian psychologist. I'm not going to pronounce his name because actually my English is bad, let alone trying to pronounce something in a different language. So I apologise. But let's focus in on the image that's on the screen. I'd like you to look at that image. And as you look at that image, hopefully a white triangle appears in the centre. The peak is at the top and the 2 bases are at the bottom. That image reminds me of the experience that a client is hopefully having. And the reason that it reminds me of the experience is because that white triangle has not been drawn on the slide. The only place that white triangle exists is in your head. It's an illusion. And the experience, for want of a better word, is an illusion for the person who's having it. It is their experience. It is their world. The incomplete dots and the incomplete triangles that are on the image that are positioned in an appropriate place that create the white triangle, I refer to those as touch points. And those touch points have been conveniently placed on the slide so the white triangle as an illusion appears in our heads. It's the touch points, the incomplete dots and the incomplete triangles that I do have some form of control of. And it's how I choose to use my touch points as I get to know the client that creates the illusion of the experience. Touch points influence individuals. They impact someone's state. They impact someone's mood. There are two sorts of touch points that I'd like to briefly touch on during this session. And the first one is content. Content is a touch point. And when I refer to content, I'm thinking about exercise choice, exercise order, exercise intensity. Perhaps exercise order is not content, it's more context. But for the purpose of this session, we're going to refer to it as content. So exercise order, exercise choice, and exercise intensity, for me, is content. It's the content of the session. It's the tools of the job. Based on the individual who's in front of me, I need to use exercise choice, exercise order, and exercise intensity appropriately to where they are now, not where they want to be in the future. To look at it in a negative, if I get exercise choice, order, and intensity wrong, I'm going to make them feel ugly, awkward, and uncomfortable. If I make them feel ugly, awkward, or uncomfortable, their experience is not going to be good and they are not going to come back. I need to make sure that I get exercise choice, exercise order, and exercise intensity right at that moment in time because it supports how I influence the session. As a rule of thumb with beginners, I would always make a session too easy. Yeah, if I make a session content too easy, I can always say to them, you're a lot fitter than you told me you were. We're going to have to make this harder. How does that make them feel? And we know that feelings drive behaviour. Yeah, if I make the session content too complex, too intense, there's a possibility that I make them feel ugly, awkward, and uncomfortable. And the experience that they have with me is a bad one, regardless of whether they are the key exercises to deliver at this moment in time to lead them in the direction they want to go. So content can be a touch point. So I would ask you to think about the content that you're using with a client at this moment in time, and can you justify it against their fitness level, their skill level, where they are now, their training history, and where they want to go, because it is a major touch point in terms of creating a hyper-personal experience. The other thing that I'd like to focus on is context. Context is the environment that we create. In that moment, the relationship between us, the PT, and the client, our interaction, our communication. And for this bit, I'd like to focus on our delivery, how we're going about delivering that session. And for me, there are key skills that are available to me as a personal trainer, which I can use as touch points or choose not to use as touch points in terms of influencing the experience right now. Demonstrations. Do I need to use a demonstration? If I use a demonstration, when do I use it? How do I use it? What about my language that I use? What about my tone of voice? Observation, not necessarily is a touch point unless I observe and gather information from the client, then the rest of the touch points are useless. So although observation isn't necessarily a touch point, it does come under the delivery skills because I'm using observation all the time to decide and make split decisions about how am I going to use demonstrations, what sort of language am I going to use. Positioning, where am I going to position myself in terms of continuing the interaction, making eye contact, making them feel welcome, building trust, reducing anxiety. how I go about using praise. If you look at Albert Bandura and his theory of self-efficacy, verbal persuasion is key in terms of raising someone's belief they can be successful. If their belief goes up, their experience with me also goes up. Yeah. Experience are measured in feelings, and we know that feelings drive behavior. So it all links back to one another. When we praise, it cannot just be using a term like good. Good. It means nothing to them. What we need to say is it's good and the reasons why it's good. We link our praise to their efforts. If we link our praise to their efforts, their confidence is going to go up. If their confidence is going to go up, they've had a great experience, they've had great feelings, they're more than likely to come back. I can only praise them if I use observation correctly. So again, although observation isn't a touch point, it's a key skill to using other touch points that help me create the experience. So just to recap, in terms of my delivery skills at this moment in time, am I going to use a demonstration? If I'm going to use a demonstration, how do I use it in terms of influencing the experience? What about my language and my tone, my positioning? Am I talking to them in a place where they can see me and I'm making eye contact, which enhances the relationship, building trust, decreasing anxiety? How am I using praise? When I praise them, am I following up with the reasons why I've made that praise? Yeah. How am I going about correcting them and enhancing their performance? Is what I'm doing continually negative, or am I trying to correct them in the positive? So rather than say, don't lock out your elbows, don't lock out your knees, I can say it in a much better, more positive way by control the movement, finish with our arms straight, with our elbow soft, and then bring the hand back up to the shoulder. I can actually avoid using negative terms. I can correct them more in the positive, yeah, which might lead to a better experience. And how am I using questioning to gather information around intensity, enjoyment, and comfort? All these things are available to me in terms of how I go about delivering. But for me, the important ones are language and tone, because again, if I make someone feel ugly, awkward, or uncomfortable, they're not coming back. So with a beginner, I might not call the quadricep. I might call it the front of the thigh. I might not even label it at all. I might just point to it. Because at that moment in time on their journey, do they really need to know the muscle groups? Because they don't really care. When it comes to experiences, members don't really care what I know. They care how I make them feel. So I need to make that judgment call. Another one that's important is praise. And I've gone over that in greater detail a few moments ago. And another one is my positioning. I'm going to always make sure in the constraints of the gym that I position myself in front of the client when I'm going to talk to them, making eye contact, decreasing anxiety and building trust. I cannot create an experience. I can build a service, I can create service excellence, but I cannot create an experience. I can only influence it, and I can influence it with content, and I can influence it with context. And one of the things around context is my teaching, my delivery skills. Finally, some real world value. A serious consideration before we end this session, and I think we all need to reflect on this at this moment in time. Exercise and fitness is free. I can go and get a program on AI right now. Yeah. How appropriate that would be depends on, the technology. But exercise and fitness is free. If all I have is exercise and fitness knowledge to offer as my act of help, yeah, I'm in trouble. It's easy for me to be replaced. Yeah. What we need to be successful is more connection with the member and the client. The more connection that we have with them, the more chances we have of influencing the experience. The experience is about making the relationship more human, ensuring that the time that they spend with us is meaningful, enjoyable, and is of value. And that is where thinking about not only the content of a session, but also thinking about the context of a session, where that client is right now, and what am I going to use as touch points to influence, create the illusion in their head that they are having an experience that they cannot get anywhere else. My aim of this session was to define the client experience. A quick task for you to do before you sign off this evening or this morning, whenever you're watching this video. What can you do to influence the experience you deliver for your clients? Thank you very much. I hope the session was of some use. All the very best of luck and success to you all.